I'm Logan Crawford, and right now on Spotlight, you're traveling in a commercial airliner. Everything is going smoothly until the aircraft is engulfed in a bright light and a close encounter of a very frightening kind begins. My next guest is an author, lawyer, professional investigator, and the man behind an intriguing book called It Begins. We welcome Michael Albright to Spotlight. Thank the folks at Good River Print and Media for helping us put Michael in the spotlight today. And we ask our viewers watching on YouTube to please support writers like him by subscribing to our channel. Michael, thank you so much for joining us here today.
Thank you.
This is quite an imaginative book. I understand it had its inspiration years ago when your child was born at Mount Sinai Hospital. You heard some kind of story about aliens and so forth. Tell me about the etymology of all this.
Okay, well, my son was a patient in Mount Sinai Hospital in New York. And one night about 4 o'clock in the morning, you hang around hospitals. I went down to the cancer ward where they have these very, very tall windows that looks over North New York City. And I was standing in the window gazing out, and a woman comes into a window next to me, and she starts to point out a building. Well, there's thousands of buildings, and then finally we zeroed in on the building she was talking about, and she goes, "That's where the woman was abducted." So I said, I read the newspaper about 3 times today, and I didn't see anything about it. What happened? And she goes, "Oh, no, it was aliens that abducted her." So I said, "Oh." Now, you take that fact aside, years and years later, there were 2 FBI agents on a surveillance outside her building and actually witnessed it. They came forward to one of those shows, Aliens or something. So we talked for a few minutes, and then I figured I got to get out of here. So I backed out and I went back to my son's room. Now he was attending Embry-Riddle Aviation School, and he would get the accident reports from around the world regarding aircraft. So I sat there reading them, going through them, and I came across an article about a plane in the Congo that simply just disappeared. They searched for it, they looked for it. America sent over a MAD detector, magnetic anomaly detector. They couldn't find this aircraft. It just simply disappeared. So I took that fact plus what the woman was saying, and realizing that we were for a long haul in the hospital, I figured I would start writing a book, partially to keep my son entertained, so we could argue about it and take his mind off his illness. And that's how it started. I wrote in hospitals.
That's amazing. I mean, as an investigator, as a journalist, we hear crazy stories. Like, we know everybody in jail is innocent. We know that the people at home are being spied on by the people watching them on TV. We hear a lot of crazy things, and a lot of them we discount, but some of them might be true.
That's correct.
And when it comes to aliens and UFOs, and aren't we a little arrogant to say, with all those planets out there and all those stars out there, that ours is the only one that's inhabited?
Oh, it's extremely arrogant. And I did a lot of research for this book, and I came across reports of UFOs all over the world from very credible people, and I got into about the people missing that disappear off the face of the earth. In the Alaska Triangle, there's over 10,000 people missing, and it's not all due to animals. They never find the skeletons, they never find the bodies. They look for them extensively, both by satellite and, of course, on the ground, and they just never find them. So it's a problem.
And if you talk about it credibly, you're viewed as a wacko.
A wacko, yeah.
Unfortunately, I know Tucker Carlson, I don't know if you watch him on Fox, he often addresses UFOs. And I almost, when he's watching, I'm like, maybe you shouldn't talk about this because you're losing credibility. But it seems like now our government is going to become more forthcoming with some of the information that they have about unexplained phenomena, right?
investigating UFOs for ages. They just won't admit it, but it's coming out in dribs and dribble, about the different programs that they had. And it's real. I mean, it's here, and people with cell phones, the evidence is becoming more and more prevalent, especially in South America, and people in the North America. I mean, I've seen a couple of UFOs. I even reported them, and people are starting to wake up to it,
It's frightening when you think of what Stephen Hawking says. He says that if there are alien life forms out there, and he suspects there are, that they'd be hostile towards us.
Yeah. And that's the basis of the book.
Yeah.
That's of the hostility that the aliens bear. And there's one section in the book where there's a secret command that's got started called Space Command. And the fellow in charge of it is Michael Scott, Rear Admiral Michael Scott. And they had a feeling that there was spies on the base. So they started hunting them down. And the head spy was a doctor in the medical unit. And there was an incident in Brazil where a plane had disappeared, but the bodies were returned. And there was a young girl that was left to give testament to the way they just mutilated the bodies and took all the organs. And she was in the hospital, and he had received orders from his superior to kill the girl. And he was walking towards the girl's room when he realized, I'm not going to kill a 4-year-old girl. And he took the needle and jabbed it in his neck. And security guards came right away because they realized that he was the spy. And when they came, he was still alive. And Scotty asked him, what do you want here? And he goes, we want your planet.
Oh, it's pretty powerful.
Yeah. And I don't know if they want the planet, but they're here. They're desecrating people. They're moving around. There's UFOs everywhere. Both the classic saucer type and a few other types. And there are multiple aliens. The most fiercest ones are the insectoids. People who have survived those abductions tell horrible stories. And there's others, and everyone in the world is starting to believe in this phenomenon, and it doesn't seem to end, and in the book it concludes, there's a second volume where they take on the alien force who are hiding on the dark side of the moon. They were using it as a base to invade Earth and manipulate Earth and what have you. And they went to war with them.
It's a fascinating book. You've really created a credible scenario based on your own knowledge, on your research, on what people know about aliens and the information that is out there. So it's very, very gripping reading this book. And I'm happy that you're writing a sequel to it, or is the sequel already released?
Yeah, there's 2 volumes out. I'm writing a 3rd one now.
Okay, so we have It Begins, and the second volume is called?
It Begins Part 2.
Okay. And the third volume, It Begins Part 3?
Begins Part 3.
Okay.
I could never come up with
I have a sixth sense on these things. I'm very prescient. It might be because I'm an alien. I don't know. I look like an alien. So it's a great job. You can learn more about Michael's books on michaelalbrightbooks.com. And I really do find this a fascinating topic to talk about, Michael, because like I said, you're not anybody. In fact, I would think somebody like yourself would be the most cynical about stuff like this, because like I said, as a journalist, as an investigator, you hear crazy stuff all the time. And generally it's born out of a schizophrenic mind.
When I was an investigator working full time, we used to hear stories like this. You'd go into a person's home, you're looking for someone, and, they always go off in diatribes and tell you stories about the UFOs they've seen, and the aliens that came into their room, And you know, you leave there and you go, what the hell is this?
Exactly. And you laugh about it in the car.
Yeah,
And after you leave the house, something slithers out of the back room and tells them, you did very well. You did not tell too much information about us.
yeah.
You know, it is crazy. And you're right. It's having the privilege to interview people from every sector of life and
Oh, yeah.
go into their homes is such an education,
Oh, yeah.
on so many different levels, from, like I said, the craziness that may or may not be true to the stories that they have to tell.
Yeah, everybody has a story to tell.
Absolutely.
And
Well, we're glad you told these stories, and I'm glad that you have a third installment coming out. Again, it's michaelalbrightbooks.com. It's a
right.
terrific read. It's called It Begins. And if you have a curiosity about UFOs and aliens and unexplained phenomenon, then this is the book for you. Michael, thank you so much for joining us here today on
Thank you. I
Spotlight.
just want to point out that the science in the book is well researched and true,
Yeah.
you know. So,
And that resonates throughout. You feel it, that this is credible stuff, which is what, like I said, you created a very real world. And
yeah.
it's the fact that it's based on science and evidence that it's pretty frightening. Hopefully 2020 was the worst we'll ever see in our lifetime,
Yeah.
but God knows what's coming. Michael,
Yeah.
thank you so much for joining us here today.
Thank you, sir.
And
You
to the
have a
folks at home, I'm Logan Crawford, thanking you for your time this time. Until next time on Spotlight.